Welcome to Power Hour. It's February Power Hour. I am Tessa Chappell, and I'm coming to you from outside Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm a Midwest girl, born and raised. You'll see Megan here at the end, and she's out in Seattle. She's actually a Midwest girl, transplanted across the country a few places, but she's out west right now. So we stretched the time zones. And so tonight for Power Hour, we're going to do 2 layouts in 1 hour. And we will work through these directions with you and make the layouts. And so let's get started. We'll flip down to my table. And a lot of you that have been following me know that I do a lot of one-page layouts. And tonight is another one. I'm still working on my daughter's album. She graduates in May, and I don't pretend like I'm going to get her stuff caught up, but I keep getting some extra layouts done to get in there. So this is the layout I created for Power Hour. We're going to use some different patterns of paper and a base paper. We're just using the trimmer in the corner rounder tonight. So, and then you can choose afterwards some little punches or accents, what you want for her. So this was some paper out of some Glacier and the Frost old collections from CN that I mixed together. Tonal paper is a low pattern design. It has some texture to it, has some design to it, but it's not really dominant. You get into some more of the statement prints are a little bit busier. All of these prints are actually fairly subtle. I mean, the stripes would be a good statement, kind of depending on what you're using them for. And sometimes people I know like to have symmetrical layouts side by side. And I want to go ahead and show you the layout that's actually going to sit next to this in my book, because I'm not one that has to match. But when I was looking ahead in the book, this is 2012, so the Super Bowl was in Indianapolis this year. So this is one side of her layout. It's just a collection of photos. They were winter. And so a lot of times when pictures don't really have a consistent theme, I just do a seasonal layout, which is why this one was winter. And then the Super Bowl was in Indy. So I had some pictures with that. So you can see how it's a different design, but I knew I was going to use the same papers. And so instead of rounding the corners, I did some straight edges there. I didn't do the matting because I wanted to my papers to show through. So even with one page, you don't have to have something that matches specifically on the other side. Sometimes I have completely different things. Sometimes I just use similar papers. Winter is a sticker. It came out of the Frost. I think it's a Frost sticker pack. Over here are the old CM mini ABCs. This is the Snowflake Pocket Punch, old cream and loose punch. And then I journaled in the silver fine tip pen on the charcoal paper. Okay, so I'm going to go through what I'm going to use for tonight. Like I said, it's the spotlight's on Emerson. So I picked out some pictures from her birthday this year. And so the layout tonight will work best if you have 4 photos that ideally can be around a 4x4 size that you can trim down. If you can't get to 4x4, you can just adapt the mats. We'll talk about a little bit of that when we get to that step. So the papers tonight, I chose, this one is actually out of Summertime. It's the umbrella print. And this one is, I would consider a statement print. It's kind of bold. It takes a little bit of attention. So the 4 papers I decided to put on top of it, I actually chose some tonal solids. I'm not sure how well you can see on camera, but they all have a little bit of a pattern, even though it's not a statement print per se. So these are the 4 I'm going to use. And then in the design, if you want to make the mat for your photos, in my example, I use navy here, and then I use charcoal. And tonight I pulled out a couple of old CM colors. This is actually 8.5 by 11, so it's going to work out perfectly for my 8x8 section. And then I'm going to mat on top of this one. This was, I think, teal. This was either Caribbean or Mediterranean, or nautical. I think it was nautical. So those are the papers that I am going to work with tonight. Clear my space. So the first step before you really, and if you're not sure about this part, just skip this part. And I'm going to realize I didn't bring my trim over here to show my photos, but 4x4 photos. So how do you decide what you can trim down? 4x4, you're cutting off 1 inch off each section. And usually if I can do 4x4, I can usually trim it down a little bit closer to like 3 3/4. The thinner that you can trim, you can get a little bit more matte, which in the end means you can get a little bit less matte, a little bit more print can show on your layout. So on my example, these were really 3 3/4 squares. And if you were looked at it, you probably would think these are 4 by 4. But sometimes those 1/4 inches different can just give you the difference of seeing, you know, a little bit more of your print. So 4 by 4 is kind of a way to think about it. Once you know you can do 4 by 4, then I'm pretty sure you can probably crop yourself down to 3 3/4, which is what the measurements I have tonight are based on. So because I know I'm going to cut mine down to 4 3/4, I'm going to stick with my original instructions. So we are going to, oh, I have the lid. We'll start with the print because that's what I have on the directions. So you're going to choose the 4 prints that you're going to make, and all of these are, you just need enough to do a 2.5 by 10-inch strip. So if you have your folder of paper, sometimes you have scraps, you don't really need a full sheet. You just need enough to get a 2.5 by 10 strip. All of these papers, I'll show you. Sometimes you can use the front or back. All of these were statement prints. You can see how bold all of these were. And so I decided I didn't want to use the back side of any of them. I'm a little bit stronger than I wanted. So I'm going to do 2.5 inch by 10. So I cut that down to 2.5 inches. I'm going to cut off 2 inches, which leaves me 10 here. For a party that year, it was a kind of a luau thing. We rented a very large blow up slide, and then her cupcakes have kind of a tropical theme, which is why I decided to stick with the bright colors. I'm cutting down 2.5 inches, and I'm cutting off 2, which leaves me 10. And then I'm going to round the corners of all of these. So this is optional. You can leave them straight if you want. A lot of us burned out of the corner rounder in the early years of Creative Memories, but I like to bring it back a little bit, have a little dose every now and then. My strips are ready. I'm going to set those up here to the side. And then I'm going to trim my base for my photos down to 8 by 8. So I'm doing an 8-inch square. And I put down here on the adaptation, if you want to use 4 by 4, if it's a little bit too much for you to think about trimming them down, then you would want to create this mat to be 8 1/4. So if your photos would be 1/4 inch bigger, so just make your mat 1/4 inch bigger. And this is where if you think you might end up using a 4 by 6 or just different, you can customize the size of this mat to fit your photos. I'm a cardstock holder. I have a lot of it. I have a lot of different sizes too because of Creative Memories, old sizes. I'm going to round the corners of this. And then I'm going to do my second base. So the second base is the charcoal color of my original one. So I just need it to be a little bit bigger and a little bit longer so I have room for a title. So this is a 10 by 12. So I want to make sure I give myself enough room. I want a 9.5 by 8.5. I'm also going to round the corners of this one. Okay, while you guys catch up with me, I need to grab my trimmer for my photos. Okay, yes, I use the old straight trimmer for my photos. I love it. I like it more than the personal trimmer because I can measure a little bit more exactly to what I want. So when you're looking for photos to trim down, if I didn't already have these picked out and I want to have a consistent shape, because a lot of times in your design, having a consistency of size helps kind of keep your layout pulled together. If I just looked at these photos, in the old style, people just crop the photo, crop down for the photo. But I think having a consistent size lends itself to a better design. And so when I'm going to do that, when I'm going to cut them down, I kind of choose the photo that is the biggest. Like, which one am I going to only be able to cut down the least? And it was this one. This is the one that I knew I had to make sure, because this one could have gone a little smaller. This could have gone a little smaller. This could have gone a little bit smaller. All of the photos I chose today, I knew I could get down to this 4x4 size. This obviously would have been the big one. Maybe I wanted to keep more of these kids. I didn't want to get them cut off. I would have ended up with about maybe a 5-inch. And so if I was doing a different type of design, maybe I want to do a 5-inch and then trim all of these down to 5 inches, or maybe do 2 of them 5 inches and then trim the other 2 down to the same. So I'm going to go down to 4 or 3 3/4. And when I'm centering my photo, I can see up here my markings. So I usually center the photo up here. I look at my marking to see, because I'm going to end up having to cut off some of the kids and some of Jonah's back. This one, like, I know I'm going to cut Cooper off. I want to keep the edge of her cupcakes. So I go ahead and cut that, and then I flip it. I only have to cut off part of her arm. I get most of her. So once you have your photos, we're going to round some quarters of them, but we have to know exactly where I'm going to put them on my mat. And I'm going to round the outer corner of the photo, which is why I want to go ahead and have them cropped if you can before you do this, because you want to know where they're going to sit on your layout, because I want to make sure when I round that corner, I'm not rounding it awkwardly. Decisions, right? I think I'm going to go with that. So that once I know how I want my photos to sit down, I'm going to round the outside corner of them.
Don't you need to finish trimming them? You didn't chop there. They're not square.
Did I not do all of them?
You didn't do the, you didn't, yeah, double check that you got completely square. I thought maybe you had some other master plan with that.
No, I thought I was doing the two sides, wasn't I?
Yeah, you just didn't chop off a little of the top.
That's why it's a good thing to have Meggan watch me. I would have got farther into the layout, and then
that one should be fine.
I did that one. You can probably tell better than me. You're above my layout. Okay, so I had this down here. Now I can round my corners. Do I have permission to round?
Sure.
You do not have to do 3 3/4. The only reason I do that is because I wanted to have as much of the print show on my layout at the end, which means I wanted this mat to be as small as possible. You can do 4 by 4 if you want. You just have to make a bigger mat. I'm going to go ahead and adhere my photos down. Everyone does need a Meggan watching to make these straight. It's a little intimidating to scrapbook in front of Meggan because you know that she's looking at your design thinking, I probably would do it differently. I would probably do it this way.
My children would tell you that having a Meggan around is not all that enjoyable.
It's hard to do some of this too on camera because I cannot be above my layout. Like working at an angle is the.
Yeah, I have the same thing when, doing the videos and stuff like that. Is like sometimes you're like, oh crud, I don't want the top of my head to be in there.
Yeah, you might find my one gray hair.
You'd see a whole like plethora of sparkles in mine.
I don't know if I can call it a sparkle. And this is when you can get a little bit particular about your photos. So if you need help aligning your photos, I do have my T-ruler that Meggan and I like to have. If you have your paper straight against a line on your trimmer or your mat, you can use the T-ruler if you want to have a consistent spacing in putting your photos down. Okay, so now that I have my photos down here, I can mat this on top of my next mat. And it's true, you could also make your photos smaller. So if you're making smaller photos, you can make your mat smaller and then you can see more of your prints. I'm going to get my base paper. And I am going to center this on my 12 by or 13 by 13 cutting mat. And then I need to decide in what order I want to put my colors. I would separate the orange, yellow. I eyeball it to make sure I like the setup. So then when I layer this on here, I can choose to offset it. And that's what I did on my example one. I did not sit the smack in the middle, although you can. I had pushed it up one side or the other, but I think I like my color combination. So I'm going to grab my T-ruler again, or you can use a 0 ruler. Straighten this up so it's true. So if you have your paper centered on your mat, you have a ruler down here. And when you're centering these, you can use a 0 center ruler. I'm going to bring it up and then you can adhere these consistently. Now I'm going to adhere them an inch up from the bottom so that they'll also end up being an inch from the top. So you could put your 0 ruler along the 11-inch line. And then you can kind of determine what kind of spacing you want off each side of the 0 point here. And then once you determine how wide you want it, then you'd be able to come over and measure for these to maintain the consistency. So probably about I like about an 1/8 of an inch off each side. It leaves about a 1/4 inch spacing. I'm actually like using the T ruler a little bit better. So the T ruler butts up against the base down here, and it lets you adhere a straight edge. I can move this over. Here's my 6-inch mark. I have my 1/4 inch mark, and so I can adhere this along the edge of my ruler. Now, the problem with the T ruler is I can't look at these inch marks, right? I can't look at the 1 inch or 2 inch. I have to look more on where it is on my mat. I think from my vantage point, Megan, I'm sure, tell me if I'm wrong. I think I'm about with this inch off.
It looks pretty good.
You don't need a lot of tape. You don't have to run the whole runner.
Your paper is not square anymore.
Yeah, so now I'm not square.
Somebody's asked me about mirroring, to just do another page exactly like it with just alternating the rectangles, maybe the colors, which sounds like a fantastic idea. Or even take the rectangles the opposite direction. Maybe they would go horizontal that next time.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of my one pagers, you just repeat it and do the opposite lay down of colors, and you can have a 2-page layout. So then once you have those down, you can decide where you want to layer this. So on my example one, I offset it over so I could see a little bit more of this print. And I went up a little bit to that corner so I could see a little bit more of a solid print at the bottom. So I would suggest just looking at the papers you chose and determining what you want to see or how much you want to see. I don't have obviously a lot of statement print in here, so I could probably kind of center this here and maybe offset it, cover up a little bit more yellow. I could let the orange, I like the orange better than the yellow. You can also flip this mat, you know, if you want your photos the opposite way, so you have more of the title top or bottom. You're going to cover up more of your strips that way because it's longer rather than wider. I kind of like the variation of having the side writing, the side title. It's not something I do a lot. There are my layouts. So then it just comes down to accenting and deciding what I wanted to do. I did bring out, I don't even know if I was going to use it, but I have one of the laser borders from the summertime. I thought I could play with maybe along the bottom. I put it too low, you're not going to see the text umbrella. I don't know, what do you think? The other options I have is, these were not from the same set. I think these are adorable, probably because they're rainbow. These are so old Mrs. Grossman's Happy Birthday, but it has all of those colors. So I thought I could put one of those along here. It would pop out. I pulled out my birthday folder to see what I had. Or of course, the old titles too. I could pick out one of these and put it along here. I have, if I didn't use this, you know, the old die cuts match a lot of these colors. You know, I think if this is the same color though, so it's kind of disappear on there. So it's probably not the best option unless I go find a different color. And then the punches, I couldn't think off the top of my head what punch would work best for this. I kind of have the blue out tropical theme, but then it's a birthday theme. We don't have an umbrella punch. We don't have just a flip-flop punch. Any ideas? Anybody think of a punch that would be good for me to accent on this one?
You could do cake or gifts border punch, just cut some of them off and use them as individual pieces if you didn't want the full border.
Yeah, I could do just parts of it.
Or some of you those comments, the balloon, what about the pineapple? I know you like that pineapple punch, especially in goldenrod.
It would be a good use for pineapple.
Tropical flower.
Yeah, you know what? I should get tropical bloom out. That would be a cute one.
Get tropical leaf with it.
Yeah, I have both of those.
Sunshine. Oh yeah, the sunshine punch.
Oh yeah, maybe I'll work on that while Meggan does hers.
There's definitely stuff out there you can use. There's lots of stuff.
Yeah, I forgot about the tropical bloom. I'm gonna pull that out. Dragonfly, I think, is a little bit off theme because I would want to either stick with the tropical or the birthday.
So really quick, Tessa, I had a question that came to me. It says on the directions in layout prep 2, it says trim 4 2.5, oh dear, by 10. And there, I think the thing is your pictures come off as, your prints come off as cardstock looking on the screen rather than maybe a tonal print.
Oh yeah, you can use cardstock, but mine are all tonal print. I can just put paper for cardstock.
Yeah, maybe, I mean, we could, yeah, I think this, whenever we talk about any kind of paper, you can always substitute in like a cardstock or adjustments for that. So we do have somebody asking about directions. The instructions, they were emailed out to everybody who registered, or if you registered after we sent the email last night around 7 Eastern, that you would have received a confirmation email that also had the link. If you still don't have them, we will be sending out another email that will also have the recording from the class. And tonight, I'm going to get them on the website. So I was just ready. Basically, before I put them on the website, I wanted to make sure that we didn't have any major things that we needed to make corrections for. And so I think we should be good there. If you talk real quick about tonal versus designer paper, that'd be good too.
Yeah, so we use this frame a lot. So let's start with a statement. Meggan and I will always refer to things like that as a statement print. It's very bold, it's dynamic, it is going to take the focus when you use it. So it makes a statement, right? So you have to use these in moderation in your design. You have to be intentional. The back sides actually of all this pack, it doesn't usually work out this way. It's not always that you have a tonal on the back of a statement print. These are all tonal prints, and I'm not sure you can actually even see the tonal. They're my favorite kind of tonal because they are truly a tone-on-tone print. This kind of has a geometric design. This has some dots. You can see the waves a little bit better on the blue, and then the yellow has a pattern. So we consider this a tonal print or a tonal pattern because it is a two-tone design. There's a design to it. It's not just cardstock, it's still paper, but it's not the bold statement that you get with some of these prints. Okay, well, I'm gonna go grab my punches and work on my finishing touches while we do Meggan's layout. She's gonna sneeze first before she puts herself on camera.
I had to make the choice. Was I gonna be able to sneeze into my shirt or go on mute? It was a hard choice there to figure out what I was gonna do. So hold on just 2 seconds. Oh, Jean has hers all done.
Very nice.
Yes, looks gorgeous. So let me find my
nice sunset print.
All right. Hello, I am Meggan Jacks. I am, like Tessa said, I'm out here in Washington. I'm originally from Iowa, spent many years in Arizona, and then moved up to Washington State in 2015. So I'm on year like number 7. And yeah. So my layout tonight, you guys are going to see, I know somebody messaged me, they thought it was Tessa's layout because it had to do with soccer. I had one soccer layout that I needed to do for my daughter. Of all my kids, we got her to play soccer one season. It was, hey, when is snack time? Is it halftime yet? It did not go. It wasn't her thing. So I just needed one layout, and Creative Memories didn't have a soccer kit for me. So I just had to make this work. So I'm going to flip over to my table and we'll take a dive into that. All right, so here is this layout. And I am going to tell you guys, if you don't need to make this, I mean, I went sporty with this, but you don't have to. The sample I'm going to show you tonight is not going to be a sporty sample. It's going to be just regular. But I do have some directions in here on how to do the soccer ball. I know that is, you could obviously probably find ways to make this different sports balls if you wanted to. So the details are down here for the soccer ball. You would need to have the hexagon custom cutting system, or excuse me, the pentagon, which was, Tess would have to tell you when that was, a long time ago it was available. So what we're going to need for this layout, though, is we need a background paper. On my sample, I used some from the black and white collection from several years ago, kind of tonal, but not really, it's just black and white. And then I had a blue tonal print from the Totally Tonals collection, and then there was a green tonal print in there that worked. I just went with the blues and the greens, and then of course the soccer balls themselves were done with cardstock. So for my layout tonight that I'm going to show you, I have some camping photos. And so these camping photos are, there was some water that they were playing in, a little bit of hiking. And my son, we found a rattlesnake, and yeah, that was interesting. And then, just crazy photos. So I found the photos to go with this, and they're camping. So I'm going to be using a mixture of papers. I am going to be using, my background papers are going to be from the Earthy Home collection. And I haven't decided if I'm going to use this grid side or if I'm going to use the more textured side. I can choose which one of these I'm going to be using. Then for my, this kind of, where I use the green in my sample, I needed to have, something that's going to be there. I kind of considered that almost like a little bit of a map for the photos, just gives that, frames things in there nicely. I am going to be using from the Happy Camper. Yes, the Happy Camper collection. It's got the trees on one side. The other side is this grid with the map at the top, topological, whatever map. Topographical, that's it. And then what I needed to do is I needed to come up with the designs that were going to be my circles. So I am going to use a tonal in the middle, and I'm going to use the wood from Earthy Home, the wood here. And then from Happy Camper, I'm going to be using this red there. So kind of how it, like when I was laying it out and taking a peek at it, it took me a little while to figure out what I wanted to do. I kind of laid it out, imagining as such and saying, oh, let's have a piece of this in the middle and then some of this down here. And I thought that would work great. And I do need a color to matte my photos. In my sample, I matted all my photos, and I am going to be using, I want to pull in some blue. So I've got a sheet of tonal blue paper from the Happy Camper collection, and I'm going to actually make all 6 mats out of this piece of paper. What I have 4x6s photos. I will be trimming down my 4x6s down to just a little bit shy of 4x6 so that I can get 6 mats out of this 12x12, and that will work perfect for the layout. One thing I wanted to point out, and I didn't include it in my direction because I was very focused on the fact that I had a soccer ball, and I knew some of you would want to know, how did I do the soccer ball? So the one thing to note here on the soccer ball layout is the soccer balls themselves give you kind of that added detail. Like, I didn't want to add any other things to cover up my soccer balls. Now, in the layout that I'm going to demo tonight, I realized last night when I was putting everything together that I was going to have a lot of just empty space down here in these circles, right? Since I didn't have, I'm not using a big print. So this is where you may want to have some sort of a border detail coming across here at the bottom, across here at the top. So I played around a little bit last night to figure out, and I created just a very simple border. It'll more than likely be mounted on or covered up will be on the red. And so you can see here that I have a border element that I will use on my my layout. I did not include that in the directions, but that is something that you may have a sticker, you may have a laser cut border, you may have, as other borders you've created as part of just making borders that you would want to include here. So I'm not going to focus so much tonight on how to create a specific border to put here at the bottom, but that would be an area that you'd be able to kind of do on your own. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. The first thing we need to do is we're going to need our jumbo circle and our cutting mat. Look at the cutting mat. You need your jumbo circle. And we're going to use the green blade. Now the blades here, for the most part, don't matter too much which one you're going to use. I didn't want to go blue because I thought that would just be maybe too big, too much. So I went with the green. Part of that was because in my soccer ball, which is where I originally started, this whole layout was started by creating the soccer ball. I did my white with the my white cardstock with the red blade on the outside track. And then I needed to make a mat for that to give that thin outside line. So that's where I used the green blade on the black cardstock to give the white a matted look, which makes it give that outline to that ball. So you can do everything with the green blade, which is what I'm going to do tonight, since I'm not worried about matting my circles. You certainly could mat the circles if you wanted to make them so they had an outline around them. That is definitely something to do. Somebody is asking about a tennis ball or a golf ball. Golf ball, you probably would need to use I would think more like a textured paper, some kind of because the divots on a golf ball are going to be fairly, they're fairly subtle. It doesn't have a definite print like a soccer ball or a baseball. And tennis is going to be, you're going to have to probably try to figure out do something with the white cardstock. I cannot, for the life of me, think of what a tennis ball looks like to get you specifics, but those are things we can probably, even in the Facebook group, start to brainstorm a little bit. How would we create these jumbo sports balls to go with there? I do need a tennis ball. I need a baseball. So those would be things. So I've got my circle here. I've centered it on my layout or my paper. I've centered my paper on my cutting mat. I've got my template centered here as best that I can. And I'm going to go ahead and cut green blade outside track. Make sure everything, yep, that's pulled away nicely. Now this piece here, you can, use to punch out some pieces here. I did share a layout as part of Creative Life scrapbooking one time that talked about how to use the jumbo circle pieces to make a separate layout. So I'll make sure that we link you guys to that so you can see those directions on it, how to make a page using the outside remnants. So I'm going to cut this circle and I'm going to cut the second circle. And like I said, my second circle is using the red tonal paper, this red plaid. And I'm going to repeat that same process. I'm going to go ahead and line everything up. And then I'll trim it with my green blade on the outside track. And I used the circle. You could try other shapes. So you could maybe use a jumbo hexagon. I'm not sure. Do you just maybe have to experiment with cardstock? Use some, just extra cardstock if you want to see how you're going to like various shapes. You could even just cut one, make your shape, cut it in half, and then lay it one way and lay it the other, and kind of envision how do you like it. So now the next thing we need to do is we need to cut these circles in half. Make sure you have your straight blade. I was working on another project and had decal in there, but I need my straight blade. Now, when you're going to cut your circles in half, the jumbo circle, you can come down here and nestle it right in the bottom here of the trimmer. And that should get you that halfway point. Just balance it in there, and that should be halfway. Now, I have a pattern that has a definite pattern to it. Like I'm not going to cut my plaid on an angle. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to go ahead and use my stripes to line things up so that I cut straight across the plaid. And that gives me my 2 halves, and I'm going to repeat it on my other piece. Now, here's the one thing I do need to think about. Do I want my planks to go that way, or do I want them to go side by side? I will go horizontal because see, Kelly's over there side by side. Well, see, how's the Kelly? I don't know. All right, we'll try them side by side. And I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm just using the bottom of my do what I want. Yeah, so this sideways is how I'm gonna cut them this way. Okay, so they're horizontal. I have a lot of this earthy home paper. If I absolutely hate it, I can adjust. All right, so I've got my 2 sets of circles cut, and obviously things are double-sided, so I can really mix and match as I need to here. So I've got those pieces cut. That is technically step 1, cutting both pieces of your both your circles. The next thing we need to do is we need to use to trim down a piece of paper into that 11 1/4 inch square. So it's 11 1/4 inches. So I am not working with a directional paper. Well, actually one side is. And so what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to pretend that I'm working with a directional paper so I can talk to you guys about it. If you do not have a directional paper, you can trim this to your merry little way. The other side are trees. Now, if I wanted to make sure that my trees were upright so that I had trees that were pointed the right direction in one corner and trees the correct direction in the other corner, I would just need to keep in mind where the tops of my trees are. So I still am going to trim this to 11 1/4 inch, which means I'm going to take off 3/4 of an inch from one side, rotate 90 degrees and take another 3/4 of an inch off. And that should get me my 11 1/4 inch. All right, so there is my 11 1/4 inch square. Now, here's the reason I want you guys, if you have a directional paper and you're looking at it, when you're looking at the original layout, you can see here, I've got a diagonal of my triangle over here in this corner. The other is in this corner. So if I'm looking at my square, I'm going to cut on the diagonal from the upper left to the lower right, and then I'm going to separate the triangles. All right. So if I cut this direction, so if I cut from the lower left to the upper right, they would separate the opposite way. So you could do that. It would reverse your layout. So that's the biggest thing here. Make sure you have the top of your paper for a directional paper, and you're going to cut from the upper left to the lower right. Now, this is a diagonal that is too long for your trimmer. It is also too long to, too long to mark. It is too long to cut with your trimmer unless you fold it. I do not want to fold it. I don't want to have those fold marks. So I have an 18-inch ruler, and I'm going to go ahead and use a pencil, and I'm going to draw lines from corner to corner. So from the upper left to the lower right. I am not worried about drawing the pencil on the top part of my paper. If this is my side that is up, I don't care about this line because it's going to be hidden. And I'm actually going to go ahead and use scissors to trim it. Because if it's not perfectly straight, it's fine. It all gets covered up by the balls or the circles. This is the one part, if you are using something other than the jumbo circle, you might need to experiment with a little bit. So there we go. I have two diagonals. Mine will actually be reversed, but since I have non-directional paper on the other side, it didn't matter. All right, so now it's time for some assembly. I'm going to do a quick dry fit before I start putting all the adhesive on everything. And that is because I really want to make sure I like the colors I've chosen for my background. Remember, I've got those pieces of paper that I could either go with either side. So let's lay this out. And you guys can help me make some decisions. All right. So when you lay your triangles on there, you're going to have 3/4 of an inch or so. You can kind of figure out what you like. And then I have my 2 circles that go in the middle. And in my sample, I had these going on first because I wanted my soccer balls to be my dominant circle. I wanted them to stand out. And you can see here how the red goes on. I think I'm just gonna, I like this as is. I think I'm gonna stick with the grid. The grid here kind of goes with my grid that's in this paper. It gives it kind of a nice feel there. And then, you know, I have the borders that'll go on here. I don't even know if you guys would be able to pick up to tell the difference if I switched it. So I'm just going to do a quick for myself to see. The color difference is very minimal. I don't know that you guys would even really be able to pick up on it in the video or on the.
You can tell that the grid has a little bit more, brings out the dark in the wood.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick. I like the darker. This isn't just not quite dark enough after seeing it side by side. Okay, so that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna stick with the grid. Now it is time for some assembly. The great part about using the grid will help me with assembly. So since we're working with the triangles, I want to make sure I put a decent amount of adhesive in my corners so that they stick down nicely. I'm using repositionable. And I'm going to come in here. I am going to get my mat just to make sure that I'm equal distance from the corners. So I'm coming in, I'm about 5/8 of an inch from the edge on each side, about 5/8 of an inch. My tips are not quite touching the corners. Yours might, and that would be okay too. And then I'm going to, next one will stick down is my center half circles. And these I will center on this edge. So they center just a little over a 1/4 inch from each edge. And I'm flush along the middle. And then this bottom circle, half circle, I'm going to come flush to this corner. And I will repeat it all on the other side, just the opposite. Lining it up at that 5/8. It works perfect, this grid. I wish paper just had that, like, or even we had like some overhead projector thing that could come down. You could have it all sync up with your cutting mat and give you that grid right on. That'd be awesome. That'll probably be like scrapbooking.
If they're doing the soccer ball, they would need to cut it, make the whole soccer ball before they cut, right?
Yes. Yes, you can definitely do that. You could do it in halves if you wanted to. But I would probably just do it as a whole and then cut it in half. There would be reasons for doing it as two separate halves. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I like this version of the soccer ball better than I necessarily like that one, but you can't cut this ball in half and get that on each side, right? Because it's a pentagon. So you would have had to basically do the halves separately and double your stuff or whatever there. So it depends on how anal you want to get about how the ball looks. I'm just telling you, it is possible, but I'd probably just make it as a whole and cut it in half.
Because I will have to make this layout because there's reasons why everyone thought it was mine and not yours.
Yeah, you guys, literally, I just needed one soccer layout. That's all I need. So these are the only pictures I have of my child playing soccer. Cody doesn't seem to have much of an interest in soccer. So I'm probably going to be fine with just one soccer layout.
I need probably 5 a year per kid times 3.
Yeah, I'm the same way about baseball. I need lots of baseball options. But I am sad this is the last baseball year for my oldest. I mean, until he just plays like recreational stuff. And I hope he does, that plays as an adult, just plays in some slow pitch softball or whatever recreational stuff.
Yeah, Emerson does track too. And we have not a lot of no track options. It's that old sticker. And it's even harder because there's no ball.
Yeah. Yep. I had hopes that we would have seen some sort, their soccer will be the one that they're gonna do next now that I've done my one and done soccer layout. I'm sorry, Cody, you have to sign up and play soccer for 1 season so mommy can make a scrapbook page with this kit.
So that's how Cooper's book will be. It's one layout. That's what I was telling Megan. The twins, Campbell's the one that ended up playing and Cooper was the one that sat on my lap for half of the game. Didn't make it past his 5-year-old season.
Yeah, so Sarah has a lot of one page activity things. Like we tried dance and cheerleading has a few more. She did suffer through that for a few more years. And just various things like that. Okay, so there's our basic layout. So now it's time to start thinking about how we're going to do these photos. So one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 12 by 12 paper here and I'm going to go ahead and cut this down into 4 by 6 mats. So I'm going to cut these in 4-inch segments. And then go ahead and trim these at 6 inches. That way I can get the full 6 mats, and I can trim down my 4x6s a little bit. And I did not pre-trim mine, and I'm gonna do that off camera. I'm just gonna get this with these mats kind of put on here, and then I will finish it off camera because I know we're getting a little tight on time. So you can see how this will start to come together. Now, since I don't have a soccer ball that I'm worried about trying to keep, you know, things showing, like I'm not worried about this design on my plaid paper, I can probably make adjustments on my photo placement. So you may find that there's different ways to arrange your layout. You could do, you know, do a vertical border if you wanted to. Lots of ways, different ways to work with this. So that is kind of the gist of how that will come together. And then, like I said, I did do a couple of quick borders, playing with that new chevron arrows and the happy camper. So there it goes. So yeah, woodsies. I love the reds and the blues together. That was what was really nice about popping in the tonal mats, so that it works out good there. Additional details that you could do, I might come in and do some of that dash stitching line around some of these elements just to give it a little bit more of a finished look maybe on these. But lots of options there. I cannot wait to see what you guys come up with. I saw somebody talking about beach balls. I was thinking you could even do, you may need to play with it a little bit. You could do a the life or the you know, the floaty rings, the pool floats. What are they called?
Tubes.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about, right? The inner tubes. Have fun with it. There'll be so much, you know, things you could do. Various things that you could do to make this work for whatever you need to do. Circles are so, you know, everywhere. So, all right.
Can you show us real quick on your border? Is that did you just punch and then layer on a paper?
Yeah. So, I will, this is what I'm probably gonna have to need to revise the handout a little bit for it to include. It is pretty basic. It is a 1-inch or a little, whatever it is. There's a solid blue black backing. It's a cardstock border, and then this is just layered under it. There's no weaving done to this. All right, it just has about a 1/2-inch strip of that wood tonal paper from the Happy Camper is layered in right behind this. And then I just cut it's not quite 1/4 of an inch of that striped paper. I just love that striped paper. So it's a really quick layer. And I do have a picture that shows the elements of it. So we'll somehow figure out how to get those into the handout so that you guys, if you're going to play with the chevron, because it's obviously it's not, you know, a specific to camping. You could use that with whatever papers collections you're working with. So, all right, that is mine. I'm going to task this back up to Tessa so we can, and I'm going to get myself on here too so I can say.
Yeah, that is the new border maker, just came out this month from Creative Memories. So we will all want it because it's versatile and can be adapted to a lot of things. I don't want to screw it up, Megan. So what's the hashtag? February PH 2022? February 2022 PH. You guys are the ones that know.
I think it's February 2022, or we could probably go with Feb. Here, I'm just going to type it.
Consistency. I think we've been writing out the whole name.
All right.
But I can't, I have my phone up on the mount, so I can't even look at the group to look. So February 2022 PH. Okay. So you can post them in the ideas group. We love to see your ideas and see what you did. I'll post them. I'll take a picture of mine tomorrow when the sun comes up and post what I ended up doing. I ended up cutting up that border a little bit so it wasn't full 12 inches. And I really like how the colors pop. So thank you all for joining us. So what's next? We want you to post your layouts in the ideas group with the hashtag, and we will do a drawing out of everyone that posts. And you're going to get a little bit more time because I'm going to be gone. So you have until Wednesday. You actually have a full week. So what day is that? Wednesday, the 23rd?
Sure.
Yeah. Wednesday, the 23rd to post your layouts, because I fly home on the 22nd on Tuesday. So on Wednesday, I'll do a drawing. If you post it with a hashtag, we'll mail you some embellishments. If you win, I will message you. So you'll need to try to message me back, because sometimes people don't see my messages. And then for March, we are doing Page Makers class for Wanderlust, the travel set. So that will be really fun. And then Power Hour will be March 15th. So it'll be 1 month from tonight. We'll be doing this again. I feel like this hour went so fast. I don't know if it's
It
just because getting
did.
used to the page makers classes where you're like 2.5 hours into it, but it was fast. Anything else that if you are new to Power Hour and you want to download all our previous content, you can do that on our website, meggantessa.com. And we're on YouTube now. A lot of the old videos are getting up on YouTube. So if you do go to YouTube, you want to like and subscribe us, because someday YouTube might give us a couple pennies when you watch our video if we get enough people to like us.
We're getting there.
We're getting there.
YouTube has a few hoops you need to jump through. So we do need everybody to please go ahead and subscribe to the channel, because one of those metrics is number of subscribers. The other thing is number of minutes or hours watched of public videos. So we're getting there. I mean, it takes time to get through all those hoops. We will get the channel will be shared in the email. We'll post it into the Facebook group as well. The other thing I wanted to mention is we're going to have a couple of NSD, the National Scrapbook Day classes coming up. We're not quite sure. Tessa, I have to talk a little bit of business this weekend to kind of determine what we want to do with the NSD stuff. So we'll get that figured out and we will get that out there. So NSD will be available to order on the Creative Memories website on February 28th. We will have our class information out there beforehand, so you know what you need to order to be prepared for any class that you want to attend with us. And I'm looking right now to get that YouTube. Yeah, I'm going to pull it up really quick. So just Tessa, entertain them for just a couple seconds.
Yeah, it's not as easy to copy. You kind of have to copy in the whole link. So someone asked,
copied and pasted it for you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Julie. So someone asked how Meggan and I know each other. So we actually met each other online, and we both joined Creative Life Scrapbooking at the same time, which is a design team that we're both part of. It's a separate page, a separate group. And we kind of bonded online through Messenger, kind of like dating friends. And we courted each other for a while, and then decided when COVID was going on and Zoom hit that we should start doing virtual classes together. She has strengths. I have some different ones. She has more of the tech stuff. We both complement each other pretty well. So we've met each other twice now. I flew out there last May to meet her for the first time, and she came out here in January for my retreat, and I'm going out there this weekend for her retreat to hang out. So that's how we met each other. And I have 4 kids. My oldest is in college, and my daughter's graduating. My twins are 12, and Meggan has 3. She has a graduating senior too. So we're both in the midst of senior year. And then she has another high school sophomore. And then Cody is 6.
He's 7.
7 now.
Yeah. So let me see if I can post this in here.
I'm in Indiana and she's in Washington, and I'm hoping that someday her husband gets transferred to the Midwest.
Yeah, we are eyeing our options after my sophomore graduates. In 2024, we might be on the move. We don't know where. So we're looking for maybe someplace a little bit more sunshine. So we'll see. We spent too many years in Arizona. It's a lot cheaper in the Midwest. I'm going to tell you guys that I would love to sell my house right now. We are just north of Seattle, and the real estate has been booming up here. So it'd be great to capitalize on some of that. But life takes you where it takes you, and so we're just kind of holding on for the wild ride. So I posted that link for our YouTube channel. So hopefully, if you have a chance to click on that, to go ahead. Anybody who's watching this video on the actual YouTube channel, there's somewhere a like and subscribe. I could point to it, but I really don't know where it is. And so share with your friends. We'd love to see, everybody enjoying Power Hour.
Maybe if enough people like and subscribe us and we get rich off YouTube, we really could fly to Australia and have a crop with our Australian, New Zealand friends, right?
I would be all over I don't know. I'm going to be honest with Tessa, even that 5-hour flight to Indy was long. I'm not one to be on a plane. I realize I can't get to Australia without an airplane, but yeah.
I don't know. I'll make her. I'll slip some Benadryl in her drink and she can sleep through the flight, right?
That would be pretty awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions or anything? I can tell you guys are still working away. So I'm excited when I get off here. You guys are gonna have stuff ready to post.
Yeah, it's always fun to see how quickly it shows up. I'm going to wrap up the recording though. I think we're good on that part at least.